welcome to this episode 171 of Frame and Reference. You're about to drop in on a conversation between me, Kenny McMillan, and my guest, Alice Brooks, DP of Wicked. Enjoy. But yeah, I was supposed to watch it. When did it come out?
November 22nd. So
yeah, the Thanksgiving era.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, is that we were all supposed to see it. I had the A-list, the AMC, everyone signs everyone up. And then it was like we all had something to do all at the same time. So I ended up watching it last night. But yeah, it packed theater. I mean, I can't think of the last time I was in a like you cannot find a seat screening. It was certainly, it happened in the past year, but I just can't remember it. Like people are very stoked on the Wicked.
I know it's very, I mean, it's sort of like a dream because just the reaction has just been amazing. So it's really wonderful.
Yeah. Have you, I assume you have not heard this podcast before.
I have not heard your podcast.
That's perfectly acceptable. The only reason I ask is very, very casual. So don't, it's not variety. It's literally, I'm a DP. Like I said, I'm in pre-production on a doc.
What kind of doc are you doing?
It's about Spud Webb. He's a 5'6" NBA player. He won the dunk contest in like 85 or something like that.
Oh, fantastic.
And so, yeah, I got put on that. Thank God, when it's finally one of those like, oh, my network actually helped me out. My buddy's a producer and he's like, hey, we actually need a DP. And then you find out they need a DP because I'm cheap. Like, all right, well, I'll take it.
What theater did you go to last night? Which
the Century City one, because it's objectively in LA. Like that's weirdly enough, the silly mall by my house is like where they, and also little fun trick that I've started doing is you'll see the little black tables put out sometimes and I'll just go to the mall and I'll walk up and I'll just be like, yeah, Kenny McMillan. They'll be like, you're not here. And I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm for Pro Video Coalition. And they'll go, oh, we'll just write you in. And I've gone to a few I got into Indiana Jones when that came out. Just flexing press credentials that I was not supposed to be there on, but they're so obvious. They're just, and they don't care. So they
Actually, last night I saw someone else do something similar and she wasn't on the list. And I was just like, I wonder if she ever was on the list.
Yeah. Well, and I, it's not like I'm going to turn around and start spouting off, I just want to see the thing fast. I saw, what's funny is there's been a lot of screenings recently. So I saw Nosferatu on Sunday.
Well,
I saw Nickel Boys on Monday. And then I saw Wicked last night. So the whiplash.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah. Nosferatu looks incredible. I'm actually interviewing Jaren right after you. So it's been a cinematographic, that's not a word, journey. Have you been watching anything recently?
No, I have not seen anything this year.
Really?
Is sad, but I think like next week, I live in Maine. Well, right now I'm in LA, but I live in Maine, and on Monday I'm going to go home and I'm just going to shut off my phone and watch movies for 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, because I'm pretty much every DP I've interviewed who's just come off a gig basically has been like, I've been shut down this whole time, because it's hard. I assume it's hard to like, obviously just shutting down just in general on a shoot, but letting in outside influence, especially if you're on something very
specific. Yeah. I don't really watch any contemporary movies when I'm making a movie. So Barbie came out while we were finishing. Barbie and Oppenheimer came out while we were finishing Wicked, and I was just like, everyone was going to that opening weekend. I'm like, I can't do it. I just have to get through a couple more weeks.
You missed out on a cultural moment, though.
Oh,
that was a very fun. Actually, the chick I was sitting next to in the Wicked screening was we were just chatting before the movie came on, and she was like, I don't go to any movies unless it's like a big thing. The last thing I went to was Barbie, and now this. And I was like, oh, really? And so she's talking about, her movie going habits, which I was like, you should please go to more. But, but she started just ripping me on. Everyone has all of my buddy Gage, who works at the Eataly over there at the Century City Mall, was like, hey, if you need me to sit in on the interview, I have all the what do you call it, trivia. Like, everyone has all the trivia about how the movie was made, and people are very into the BTS, which I love because I'm a big proponent of like good BTS. I'm hoping the Blu-ray, whenever it comes out, will have some BTS for this one because people seem very interested.
Yeah, I know people keep emailing me going, because John and I broke down Dancing Through Life for Vanity Fair, and I keep getting emails going, can you please do this for every musical number? Which would be lots of fun, a lot of work, but a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, and it's so educational too. Like, I went to college in '08, but I had gone to film school before that. And my film school was, I think a lot of people in the 90s, early 2000s, my film school was special features,
Yeah,
for the most part. And
100%. Same for me. Like, yeah, as soon as DVDs came out and you had the special bonus features, it was like total film school. It was amazing.
yeah. Did you have the classic director series like Mark Romanek, Spike Jonze,
Mhm.
that package? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a
So cool. Such a great era of cinema as well.
Yeah, honestly, like yeah, I try not to be I feel like I'm starting to become the like old man in regards to like, oh, it was better back then, but then I'll turn around and actually go watch a movie and I'm like, nah, it's still pretty fucking good. Like, it's not I think there's just more now, so it's easy, signal to noise and whatnot.
Yeah, because we have so many. Yeah, because of the streamers, there's just so much more to watch,
Yeah.
and really good television now too. So
That I think that's the big one that I think often slips into my blind spot is just how good television has become. Because when I was watching TV, it was like House, and then Breaking Bad came out, and we were like, wow, that's storytelling. How that's odd. And now if Breaking Bad came out, it would probably be not a footnote, but somewhere in the middle.
yeah, and then the great series, like super amazing series, then were like that actually were incredibly cinematic in the late 90s, then were canceled very quickly, like My So-Called Life, which our writer Winnie Holzman from Wicked wrote as well. So
Oh, no kidding.
I think yeah, she was the creator of that show. I think there's just a very um, uh, uh, um and of course that got Jared Leto and Claire Danes their start. But I think the show just was a little bit forward, future, just a little bit ahead of itself, ahead of its time.
Yeah. What's funny is the other night, me and my girlfriend were just watching movies, and one finished, and I go, "What's Stardust?" And she goes, "You haven't seen Stardust?" And I was like, I don't know what that is." And she turns it on. Have you not heard of it?
No, I don't know about it either.
So it's Claire Danes is like the secondary main character, or I guess whatever, co-lead,
Yes.
and every 15 minutes I'm like, oh, this person's in this movie. Like, it was just this
Wow.
massive studded film, and it's like a very cute. I would consider it a holiday film. There's no holiday in it at all, but it's a very like fantasy kind of. It's fun. You should watch it. It's a good one. Um, uh, I did want to ask you though, apropos of nothing. You grew up in New York, but then moved to L.A.
Yes.
Tell me all the ways LA is better than New York.
I don't know. And then also left LA, and now I live in Portland.
I know, but I don't
Uh,
want any LA slander. I want to hear only good things.
the best part of LA is I can go hiking 365 days a year. It's somewhat warm, although this December is not so warm. But it's warm compared to almost everywhere else in the country. No, I love LA, and I love all my friends here. I have the most amazing human beings I know are here, and I love them dearly.
Yeah, my real question about that actually is, I have so many friends who shoot in New York and stuff, and it's normally like, how'd you get started? Oh, well, one day there was a Law and Order episode that was shooting, and somehow I got on that and whatever, whatever. But I was kind of wondering if you could speak to the shooting differences between the coasts, because there is a certain pace that I personally do. I have to give New York credit. The few New York shoots I've been on have been, I've preferred the I don't know if you want to call it professionalism, but it's that pace is a lot, fits my brain better at least.
In New York, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, New York is fantastic. I've made two movies, or in recent years, I've made two movies there, and I've made a bunch of other projects there. And I did In the Heights there and Tick Tick Boom. And there's just an incredible energy and a pace and a sort of an efficient way of working through your day that feels like everyone's working toward the same goal, but the conditions just aren't easy, right? You're either up like 20 flights of stairs, or you're shutting down New York City streets and everyone's angry with you. And so it is different than LA. LA's much, I think the pace here is much more chill.
Yeah. Well, and you're trading elevators for parking, I guess. I don't. But you wanted to make musicals your whole life, right? Like that was kind of your jam.
Yeah, I grew up in New York. My dad was a playwright and my mom was a singer and a dancer, and musicals were on in our house all the time, and music was on in our house all the time. And my parents, we didn't have much money, but my parents figured out how to get us to Broadway shows often. And so that was a complete, it was everything I wanted to do when I grew up. And I met John Chu at USC, and he asked me to shoot his short musical film called When the Kids Are Away. And we bonded over our love of musicals, because it was at a time no one was making musicals. It was pre-Moulin Rouge and pre-Chicago. Um, and so like we just had this dream that we'd grow up and make musicals. And now we just did two or three in a row, if you consider Wicked two movies.
Yeah. That was a sneaky one too. I try not to know a ton about the movies that that I'm getting screened for or whatever. And then the old school title card comes up, goes part one. I was like, you doomed me. You did. I wasn't ready for Dune to be a two-parter either when it came
Oh,
to it.
really?
But, nah, yeah, y'all keep doing it. But yeah, so wait, hold on. So this was pre-Chicago and all that. I remember that being a big. So what were your influence? Must have just been kind of like what, Gone with the Wind type of. Where were you guys pulling your musical influences?
But Sound of Music,
Sure.
um, uh, Cabaret, Sound of Music, Meet Me in St. Louis, Music Man, Wizard of Oz, all the great Hollywood musicals. I still have, not here, but at my house in Maine, I have this book that my dad had, the MGM musical, and it's just like this big, huge coffee table book. And I packed it and brought it to London, even though it weighs like 25 pounds. But I was like, okay, I'm taking this to London when we go make Wicked, because these are the movies that inspired me for so many years.
Yeah. Did it feel like you were kind of going up against some? Because I remember when I went to film school, I wanted to make. I'm a fucking boy, so I was like, I want to make The Matrix, action movies and shit. So, but that still felt like I was going up against. There's a lot of work. Granted, I was watching Wicked and going, this is more choreography and camera work than John Wick. Like this is quite. But
Well, if you actually look at Wicked, or musicals in general, like John Chu actually, I'm not going to say this, but if you look at musicals in general, it is complete choreography, and big action sequences. Like everything has to work together, not just dance choreography, but like action choreography. And our key grip, Guy Micheletti, he has done every big action movie you can imagine, from The Batman to Dune to musicals too, like The Little Mermaid, and anyway, massively huge jobs. And in the middle of Wicked, he came to me and he's like, I have never done this many really complicated crane shots in my life.
as I was watching, I try to watch these movies like, and I try to only do like the first 30 minutes being analytical and then watch it.
Watch
And
the
I had to give up really early on the analytical because there's just so much. There's just so much, and it's I've watched a few musicals this year. Really in the past, I'm not like a giant musical guy, but the as a you know indie DP, I've been like, I can watch a movie and go like, I know how I do that, or but
yeah.
this was not the case. I flat out was like, I would not take this job. That's there is so I can only congratulate you on the Herculean effort
Thank
of
you.
like I was just sitting there going like the poor first AC. It's just
I know. I mean, our AC, we had these long, beautiful, very complicated shots. We were shooting wide open on our lenses and on Alexa 65, so very shallow depth of field.
you
And,
shot these all in the 65.
mhm. Alexa 65, the camera.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and then of course they come out with the mini like right after you're done.
Well, I mean, we finished almost a year ago, so it's not
Yeah.
right after.
They
But
couldn't help you out. Be like, here's the
but our
prototype.
steady cam operator like never loses his horizon. A lot of like some of the time I'm like, you can't feel the camera. I'm just like, people think some of the shots, like, how did we must be on some sort of crane or dolly or something to be able to move around and then suddenly slow down and then completely pause because he has no float whatsoever to his camera, to his steady cam. He's wonderful too, Karsten Jakobsen. Um, and our focus puller doesn't pull off a monitor. He pulls off right next to camera. He measures everything. He's like brilliant. He is just the most amazing focus puller I've ever worked with. Lewis
It's
Hams.
it is genuinely like the woman I was sitting next to who said she's never gone to a movie. She looked at me and she goes, "So what did you think?" Because I told her, I'm a journalist or whatever. And I was like, I don't know what to think right now. Cause
Yeah.
truly like, even Dune. I was talking to Greg about Dune, and in my head I could conceptualize shooting Dune. I can't think of shooting Wicked. Like the fact that it took you 3.5 years doesn't even surprise me. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a big ass movie.
Well, the first year, I'd say the first year and a half, John and I were just talking about the story. He was doing his draft of the script with the writers, and so our conversations for that first year and a half were purely, um, or maybe it wasn't a year and a half, maybe it was 8 months, 9 months. Anyway, for the big chunk of the beginning, it was all we did was talk about story and humanity, and it's all John is an emotional storyteller completely, and everything needs to support that relationship between Elphaba and Glinda. The rest doesn't. The rest is the world of the film, but really and truly, the most important thing is that relationship, that connection, and so then I need to get into John's head as much as possible to figure out, okay, how do I tell the story he wants to tell and the vision he has for Wicked.
Yeah. So what was prep like? Because I know I'd seen in a different interview that you were talking about like, as granular as like, oh, in the dance ballroom, whatever scene,
Yeah.
having to go for like, all right, here's some plastic, how's this light up? All right, we'll make it a little bigger. How's it? But like in terms of conception, again, because I know you guys built the majority of these sets, and the everything is so expansive, and whatever VFX extensions there may be, I couldn't fucking see them. Um, how were you? Yeah, just walk me through the prep on how I'm stuttering for words because A, I'm sleep deprived, and B, movie's really big.
So we go in, we get to London about 14 months or 18 weeks before we're going to start shooting. So I'm there for 14 months roughly. So we get to London and we start scouting locations and real barley fields and flower fields and cliffs and because John told us to dream bigger than we've ever dreamed before among all the departments. But the reality was we were such a massive film unit. There was no way we were going to travel to these places. And so, but it inspired all of us. Like we went out all over the UK for a week. And it started, the idea of nature started to like seep into us. And so instead, and then Nathan had this idea, okay, well, let's not, let me backtrack. So John, Pablo, Nathan, and I all agreed. Pablo's our visual effects supervisor. We wanted to capture as much in camera as possible, right? Like the world
And
of Oz.
Nathan's a production designer.
Nathan's the production designer. We want to capture the world of Oz and create the world of Oz and our own unique version of Oz. So how can we do as much in camera as possible and not just rely on visual effects? And that was the first challenge John posed to us. And so then as we start prepping, Nathan starts drawing these sets and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so my first week on the ground in the production offices, this is after our scouting, and I went home for a few weeks, and then we're back August 1st, 2022. And I hadn't met the gaffer in person before, and he comes right into my office and barely any hello, how are you? He's like, we've got to get up to the art department immediately. He's like, this movie, these sets are bigger than anyone understands yet. And so, and his name's David Smith, wonderful, wonderful gaffer. And we went into the art department, which was up one floor from my office, and basically lived there for the next 18 weeks as we just went through the plans and started working with Nathan to build so that we could build lighting into the sets or be able to know what walls needed to move so we could do these amazing crane shots, and really started diving in with our department. So that was a massive part of prep. And then of course we've got another part of prep, which is the choreography part of prep. And so going to dance rehearsals almost every day and getting into Chris Scott's world, who was our choreographer. So that's a little bit of what prep was, but it was pretty intense.
Yeah, because I did want to know, like, even the biggest movies are just a bunch of small problems to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any that kind of come to mind in terms of like something that hit you as like a big concept that you were able to kind of narrow down and bite through and get going?
I think great, like movie making that's all it is challenge after challenge, problem after problem. We get to be problem solvers and we get to go, okay, we want to do it this way, but it's not going to work this way. So what can still give us that exact same feeling? And the thing, I mean, this was the hardest movie I've ever done. I think it was the hardest movie. John Chu has said it over and over again. It's the hardest movie he's ever done.
It's Avatar minus the 3D.
Yes. And you've got like 28 movies inside this one, the first part of our movie. So
Yeah.
wait to see part two. And so it's all, but the thing that works so well is the team. We had our core team was all on, we were all telling the same story. We all knew exactly, John is such an amazing leader. We knew exactly what he wanted. And at the beginning of prep two, we all sat in we all went to see the stage play Wicked in the West End in London. And I just had this vision where we're all lined up watching the show, but that we were all linked arm in arm walking down the yellow brick road the same way Dorothy and the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Lion are all, but it was us. And the fact that we had each other and we knew we had each other's backs. And I've known John Chu for 25 years almost. I've known Chris Scott for 15 years and the editor Myron for 7 or 8 years. So the fact that we have like this incredible core team and then new people added on that John just brilliantly picked, and we worked so hard together. And we'd start our days every morning in what we called the war room, which was this huge office space that had 3D models of the sets and images on the wall of what we wanted the movie to look like, and Paul Taswell's costume designs, and then Fran's green makeup and Ari's makeup, and that just was like our sacred space where we got to create what the movie was ultimately going to become.
Yeah, I mean, because I saw it I had been mainlining interviews that you've done last night, hence the lack of sleep, but 1.75 speed really helps when all you need is information. But I was interested because you had mentioned, and correct me if I'm ever wrong, but you had mentioned, I believe in a separate interview that you basically had been working with John since USC. You know,
Yeah.
you had done what'd you call it, the League of Extraordinary Dancers. How did were you guys able to kind of bring that film school feel to a movie this large?
Yeah, I mean, at one point, John, during this whole process, John was also writing a memoir. And so a lot of his like videos were being archived, and he kept coming up with all this footage of us making his student film, and like footage or like video cam footage or stills. And at one point in Emerald City, towards the end of the movie, he looks at Chris and me and he's like, it's just like when we were making the Legion of Extraordinary Dancers. And we're like, except we're in the middle
Yeah.
of the city. But I think we were like huddled together on the ground, like looking at an iPad, like milling over ideas. But it is a very film school spirit. Ariana Grande said in an interview recently too that it felt like we were making a student film in many ways.
Yeah. I gotta give her, obviously we've seen it because of SNL, but her comedic timing is excellent. She's so fucking funny.
Always funny. She's hilarious. And who knew? I mean,
Yeah.
people knew because they hired her, but she's brilliant.
Yeah, I guess her demeanor doesn't, you wouldn't think that someone that's, at least I've never met her, but in, you know, interviews, she seems very like reserved, and usually that's not someone who's funny, you know,
Yeah.
someone who doesn't want to talk. Um, Talk to me about the pre-light weekends that you had where you were able to kind of work with just your crew and keep everything. Again, I'm trying to make this bite-sized for my brain, but I imagine those weekend pre-lights must have been kind of a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I mean, people were like, "Aren't you exhausted?" And yeah, of course I'm exhausted, but you like the adrenaline's also keeping you going. We've shot for 8.5 months, 155 days, and
Because you shot both films.
we shot both films.
Yeah.
And but the weekends were like this incredible space that was just it was me and the electricians and sometimes a couple of other people from special effects, or depending on if what we needed, or set dressing or the greens department. But it was, it was 14, 15 people instead of, the whole army of people that it took every day to be on Wicked. And so I got my own quiet time and thinking time and creative time with no real pressure, right? And my daughter actually got to go to those too, which was also really nice. And so it gave me a chance to take the script and walk around and pretend I'm Cynthia playing Elphaba, or Ariana playing Glinda, and how would the space feel to them, and how would the light hit my face if this is the feeling I had in this moment. And then we were able to work all these lighting cues into the movie, and we never would have been able to do that. We have almost 6,000 lighting cues. I mean, that never would have happened if we
It's a big iPad.
have the weekends. Yeah. Our dimmer board op was on the iPad. And then David Smith, our gaffer, also had a wireless board with 12 channels, and he'd ride those sliders a lot of the time as well.
Yeah, so I was like, one thing about the film that I think was really fascinating was it is I could see a lot of hard light. You know, I'm looking at shadows. I'm a DP, and there's a lot of hard light, but it's so delicate. Like it's not, we're not just slamming people with spotlights, but it feels very soft and kind of pastel and again delicate. And I was wondering how you managed that, because I was like, are we doing this all in the grade? Like how are we making it so
Yeah.
precise and airy and kind of pretty, you know?
I'm glad you used the word airy, because when I started describing this movie, long before we ever shot it, it was effervescent.
Mm.
And there was, when I worked with Panavision, Dan Suzuki at Panavision,
I love Dan.
Yeah, who and developed new lenses for they're now called the Ultra Panatar 2s, but we're the first movie to have shot on them. And he created our own Wicked recipe within the Ultra Panatar
Did
2s.
you get your own label on the lens, like the Wicked
Well,
barrel?
we had a different secret name, so
Oh,
then
fair enough.
because we tried to be quiet about making the movie for quite
What was
some.
the name? Did you just say?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say
Oh,
some.
okay, fair enough.
Nice. But what was I? Oh, so yeah. But John really wanted to make an old Hollywood movie, and he asked me what my goal was for the movie, and I said it would be the greatest love story ever told between these two women, these two best friends, and it would. And as that goal started to come to fruition, and John wanted that connection, that love story, and that romantic feeling of finding your best friend and then being pulled apart from them, and your best friend starts as your enemy. I mean, it's a very classic tragic love story in many ways as well. And so how do we create that softness, and we've got these two very different human beings in the same frame with each other. I mean, you have Elphaba, who's green, wearing black most of the time, and you've got Ariana, who's in different shades of pink, many very, very pale pinks.
Right.
Skin's very pale, and she has platinum blonde hair. So she is so light. And Cynthia, just the green makeup was its own challenge.
Imagine. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because Lord, I didn't even think about that. Just managing the exposure values between the two of them in one shot.
Yeah.
I
And
imagine.
we really power windowed any of this movie. There's only one sequence where we had to go in, and I knew that when we were shooting. So there's this scene in the lower attic, um, which is at the very beginning of Defying Gravity, and it's the darkest part of the movie.
Right.
And and I knew I needed, and Cynthia walks in and she has her hat on first, and then she takes it off. But I knew I needed to protect, to make sure like we could see still all the detail in Cynthia's costumes. So I lit the scene for her, knowing that Ariana was going to have to come down in the grade, and also the floor was too bright, and so I had to take the floor. What we didn't have time to get them to take it down. It was just it was a light wood, and it just needed to be darker.
Right.
So, but we didn't have. We between the pre-light and shooting, I think we pre-lit, and then the next morning we shot, and so they couldn't take it down in that time. So I knew those two elements were going to have to come down, but we didn't have to do anything to Cynthia. So and so we were able to balance the entire movie with lighting, and not rely on power windows.
That is such a triumph, because I legitimately was just watching going like, well, you got to be, again, the precision of obviously a lot of people were like backlit and stuff, but just by looking at the shadows, like we're dealing with, what were your like exposure values then shooting? Were you just like spot metering like a madman? Like,
We do have, the gaffer and I both had our spot meters for sure, but I mean, you rely on the scopes, at the DIT, and then at some point you get into a rhythm. But we also we go from the brightest of bright worlds in Munchkin Land to the darkest places, and as stakes get higher, the movie starts to get darker and darker, and that big shift happens. In Dr. Dillerman's classroom, and there's a scene where he's talking about the history of the animals, and then a blackboard flips over, and it's sort of the thing that really triggers Elphaba to know there's something wrong in Oz, and but right before that happens, all the shades of the classroom close, and we do this big lighting effect where everything dims down, and we do this zigzag of light that turns the projector on, a sunbeam that turns the projector on, and that starts to be our dark, like that at that moment, that's our darkest part of the movie, and then we progressively get darker from there.
mm. Oh, they want me to, it's a shorty. I didn't know it was a shorty. Do you know what like what kind of contrast rate, because again, the thing that I was, as someone trying to steal from you, how are you keeping the ratio so was like, were you exposing those kind of keys at key and then only doing your fill at
No, I mean,
Right under.
again, it varied by scene. Like,
Yeah.
a- and we also have
I'm
mass.
imagining those exteriors mostly towards
Oh,
the
the
beginning.
exteriors at the beginning. Yes, though. I mean, she's at a 2.8.
Mm,
Indeed, the camera, but we shot those mostly at a 2.8. But then we're outside for all those scenes. So then suddenly clouds come in, or so sometimes if we had a like cloud to Sunday, some of those shots would have been shot at a 4. But for the most part, we shot the whole movie at a 2.8.
gotcha. And were you flying just like a bunch of diff up top or?
Different. We had a combination of diff, and then we also had there are 5 200 kilowatt soft suns in the world, and we had all of them.
Yeah.
So,
Hell yeah.
so we had lights. We had plenty of light as well, but because those London days can get pretty dark pretty quickly. So
Right, right. Well, shit, I didn't know I was gonna be let's see.
if
All
you
right.
want, maybe I don't know if you want to go for like 5 to 10 more minutes. If you've got some really good questions.
No, so yeah, no, this podcast is usually very conversational. So I'll just write a bunch of notes and then
Okay, good.
when they
Okay.
come up, I just go, oh yeah, here's something we can talk about. You know what? Hold on. I'll end with a goodie. I see now it's like, okay, I wrote movement equals restraint.
Oh, yeah. I could talk about restraints.
Please go with that. You know what I wrote. I don't.
Well, so like we're this massive musical, right? And musicals, you think constant moving camera, but it's actually in the quiet moments that this movie actually takes place. And we could have had, I mean, we had all the toys in the entire world, right? But it is the moments that pause or slow down and the sound completely cuts out. And those are the moments where the audience actually leans in, and so much is going on in Cynthia's eyes or Ariana's face. And that's where the movie actually unfolds.
Yeah, I as someone again who doesn't like necessarily seek out musicals. My girlfriend does. She's a dancer, professional dancer. So that's right up her alley. She was the one who said this is Avatar for the gays and the theys and the girls. And I was like, that's a perfect. But it is genuinely like I appreciated how accessible it was for a non musical guy or
Yeah.
gal because there is plenty of acting in the middle, because I think when there's a film and I saw the original Wicked off Broadway, I think like I want to say like 2011 or something like that. And I loved that. But when I'm in a theater, I'm expecting, just wall to wall musical. But in a movie, it is nice to get a bit of breathing room. And like the even just like all the animals sitting around and having their little like secret meeting and stuff. And it's crazy. You guys made me feel for the animals so early. The bear rolls in at the very beginning and I'm like, I love that bear. I would die for that bear. And for no reason.
Yeah, no, I think this movie has something for everyone, and I think one of the nicest compliments I've gotten on the movie is that um, it's this big vast movie, but it feels very handmade, and that an 8-year-old can watch it and an 80-year-old can watch it, and all ages in between. Like families went over Thanksgiving, the whole family, 20 people, all ages, all genders, and and people, the 8-year-old and the 80-year-old then can have a conversation about the movie. It's pretty wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I hope in the second film that you guys tackle Return to Oz. I want to see Wheelers. I want to see headless princesses. Have you not seen Return to Oz?
I have seen,
Oh, okay, okay.
but we're very different than Return to Oz.
That film scarred me as a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's brutal. The chick shouting Dorothy Gale all spooky has haunted my brain for 30 years.
I don't remember any of this.
Oh, dude, you got to go rewatch that film. It is dark. It is shockingly dark. But all right, I'll let you go. Thank you so much, Alice, for hanging out with me. I'd love to have you back on to talk for a extended period whenever your life frees up for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kenny.
Yep. Take care.
Bye.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production, produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to frameandrefpod.com and clicking on the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.